Welcome to The Explainer. Today, our goal is to completely decode author and business consultant Myron Golden's blueprint for lasting generational wealth. Now, we're not just talking about surviving comfortably here or, managing to scrape by each month. No way. We are unpacking a comprehensive system for building wealth that actually perpetuates long, long after you're gone. So, we're going to look at the true purpose of cash, how our mindset kind of traps us, and the specific architecture of a rock solid financial house.
Okay, let's dive into this. Are you one of the people who truly desires to create wealth? Or do you just want enough money to be comfortable? It's a vital hook question, right? Because it directly challenges that traditional work to pay bills mindset that is just so deeply ingrained in so many of us. Golden points out that you can talk to someone for literally 5 minutes, and their words will completely betray their financial mindset. Think about it. If you're constantly hyper-obsessing over your bills, well, that is exactly what you're focusing your life's energy on. Which brings us to a really core concept in Golden's framework. You can't ever start making real wealth until you learn how to stop working exclusively for money. Now, hold on. That doesn't mean you just up and quit your day job tomorrow. It means you have to start dedicating time and energy to projects that might pay you absolutely nothing in the beginning. True wealth creation, it requires delayed gratification. You literally have to sacrifice some of the things you want to do right now on the altar of your long-term future. To understand exactly how to achieve this, here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We are going to hit 1. The wealth misconception. 2. The 4 financial windows. 3. Cash flow versus accumulation. 4. Generational wealth and perpetuation. And finally, 5. The true definition of wealth. All right, starting right off with section 1, the wealth misconception. We really need to unlearn this idea that the primary purpose of money is simply to pay for the stuff we consume or, just to keep the debt collectors off our backs. As long as our vision is limited to our monthly expenses, we're going to remain completely trapped.
So, one of the biggest misconceptions out there is the trap of the hourly wage. The average person actually thinks that if they can just increase their hourly rate, say moving from $15 an hour up to $35, $50, or even $100 an hour, that they'll finally be in the proverbial catbird seat for the rest of their life. Well, at least until tax season hits. But as the source notes, while that definitely makes your life incrementally better, it does not make it exponentially better. Trading your time for dollars is never going to make you truly wealthy simply because, well, your time is strictly limited.
And that moves us right into section 2, the 4 financial windows. To escape that hourly wage trap we just talked about, Myron Golden visualizes a financial house. And this house is built on a rock-solid foundation of truth, featuring very specific windows where our money actually flows. And this brilliantly illustrates the exact difference between the financial classes. For poor individuals, money comes in through their job and goes straight out the outgo window as bills. They completely hyper-obsess on these bills. The middle class, they bring money in and filter it through the wealth-reducing liabilities window, taking on debt to maintain good credit, buy nice things, before it eventually exits as bills. But the wealthy, they do something totally different. They take their income and intentionally direct it straight into the income-producing assets window, the IPAs. So how do we actually utilize this IPA window? Step 1, put your time and your money into creating an income-producing asset. Step 2, and honestly, this is the hardest part, wait patiently. Because in the beginning, this asset produces absolutely nothing. But over time, it produces a little money and then a little more. And finally, step 3 is the breakthrough. Your income-producing assets generate enough cash flow to eventually circle back around and pay for all your bills and liabilities for you. It's like a machine. To really ground this theory in reality, consider this staggering monthly figure, $7,000 to $18,000 a month. That is the actual cash flow generated by just one single book Myron wrote way back in 2006. Think about that. He put the time in to write it once, placed it in his asset window, and month after month, year after year, it generates enough money to pay his personal bills entirely on its own. That right there is the sheer power of a built asset. The source uses this absolutely fascinating biblical analogy to explain this mindset shift, the garden versus the factory. God didn't place the first man in a factory to clock in and work for an hourly wage, right? He placed him in a garden. Why a garden? Because in a garden, you plant seeds. Those seeds become assets that produce multiplying fruit. So if you're struggling financially right now, it's highly likely because you just haven't planted any seeds yet. You're acting as your own sole asset. Let's transition over to section 3, cash flow versus accumulation.
Now that we've got a handle on how assets work, we really have to look at how we view the cash those assets actually generate. Because let's face it, society has taught us some very limiting habits here.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the image of a stagnant pool completely challenges the deeply ingrained societal myth that simply saving money is the ultimate path to wealth. We are always taught to prioritize cash accumulation, right? Building up this big pool of money just to look at it. But wealthy people know that a stagnant pool of savings is constantly, actively losing value to inflation. Instead, wealth is really all about cash flow. Money isn't a pool to be viewed, it's a tool to be used to acquire or enhance even more assets. To visualize this, the source shares this really powerful metaphor from a trip to Israel, comparing the Dead Sea to the Sea of Galilee. So the Dead Sea has water flowing in, but no outlets whatsoever. And because the water just sits there and accumulates, nothing can live in it. It's totally dead. The Sea of Galilee, however, has both inlets and outlets, and it sustains abundant life. If your money only has inlets and absolutely no outlets, like if it just sits tied up entirely in a savings account where you can't touch it, it stagnates financially. It just turns into a dead sea of cash accumulation. Let's move to and see how this builds into Section 4, generational wealth and perpetuation. Because eventually our timeline has to expand beyond our own lifespan. After all, the one thing we absolutely all have in common is that eventually we are all going to pass away. It is absolutely vital to realize that generational wealth isn't just an amount of money. I mean, families have accumulated tens, even hundreds of millions of dollars, only to have it completely wiped out in less than 2 generations. Why does that happen? Because a lump sum will inevitably run out. True legacy wealth is a permanent, self-sustaining system of cash perpetuation, a system that continues to flow long, long after you are gone. And one highly unconventional strategy the source highlights to create this system is the aggressive use of life insurance. Wealthy families literally use life insurance on everyone in the family as a core pillar of wealth perpetuation. It provides a tax-free death benefit, sure, but more importantly, it provides profound emotional runway. Think about it. When tragedy strikes, a grieving spouse shouldn't be forced by sheer desperation to immediately run right back to work. Life insurance actually secures that crucial time for the family. But there is a massive, vital caveat to all of this. You can leave behind assets and you can leave behind all the life insurance in the world, but none of these systems will survive unless we actively teach our children financial literacy. If the next generation doesn't truly understand the purpose of money or how these asset windows work, they aren't going to perpetuate the wealth. They will absolutely decimate it. Which brings us to our final section, Section 5, the true definition of wealth. We've talked a lot today about cash, assets, and systems, but we have to conclude with a totally counterintuitive realization about what money actually is. So the crucial point is this: wealth isn't money. Money is literally just the byproduct. True wealth is simply your ability to create value for someone other than yourself. That's it. If you can consistently create massive value for other people, you are wealthy, and the cash flow will naturally follow as you channel all that value right through your income-producing assets. Which leaves us with one final provocative question. How will you shift your focus, stop merely working to pay your bills, and start creating real value today? It is time to build your financial house on a rock-solid foundation of truth. Plant your seeds in the garden and let your assets finally work for you. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, keep creating value.